Hello, everyone. Today we're going to be interviewing the Harbormen, and with me today is Keen himself.
Hello.
So, how exactly did Harbormen get its start? I mean, like when was it founded? How did you guys decide on this sailor-like theme I've seen? The works.
Well, the sailor theme was all me. I created the Harbormen in July of 2016 for a game called Worlds Adrift. Um, Worlds Adrift was kind of an interesting game. It was a sandbox game. It involved airships. You were in this space that was full of these floating islands of land, and there was just this skyscape all around. And below you was this cloud layer, which if you went below it, you'd die. So if you falling was death. But as long as you were, as long as you had your ship and you had this one ship, your ship was your world, and all of your resources were on that ship. And if you got shot down, that was it. You were starting from square zero. So Worlds Adrift was fascinating to me, and I was looking at the absolutely gorgeous gameplay. And it was a physics simulator, a really true physics simulator. And I was looking at this, and I was remembering my experience of the game called Rust. Now now back in, I think it was 2013 maybe, when Rust was way early in its development. Back when it was not very well known at all, I got into that game, and I tried to play it, and I immediately found that, man, unless you were absolutely ruthless, you could not survive in that game. I failed utterly at that game. I was just not a PvPer at all. And one of the things I found is that, like, the first few servers I tried to get into, and this was common, this was like more than one server, you would log in, and you'd spawn at one of the campsites, and every map would have, 3, 4, 5 of these campsites, which were the spawn locations. And you'd pretty much immediately be hunted down by some group of guys that were running around to all the campsites and finding all the newbies and killing them. You just hardly couldn't get started in that game without being slaughtered. And when I finally did find a server that had that didn't have so much population, it was a little safer. I got started, and then got a little camp going, and there wasn't anybody to interact with, and so that was boring. And there was no middle ground. It was either boring or terrifying. So I wrote that off. I said, "Oh, fuck that." And so I looked at Worlds Adrift, and I saw something kind of similar happening there, and I realized that I wanted to create a group that had some sense of fair play. Acknowledging that in a sandbox game, there's never really a fair fight. You're not going to ever have a fair fight in a sandbox game, just like in EVE Online. You ever play EVE Online?
I tried picking up. I didn't really get too far into it, mostly because I just saw it mostly as a game for people with a lot of money. And a guy in high school, I was like, I don't got the money to get the good shit in this game. And I gotta agree. Like, same thing for Rust. I started way back on the early version of the game. People that play that now, they don't realize that this is the new version of the game. Old version,
Oh,
all the materials, like, you just have wood piles of already chopped wood, and you went and chopped the wood piles. It
yeah,
was
yeah.
weird. And it's the same thing. Yeah, I agree with you. Like, Rust is probably the prime example for just ruthless, lawless anarchy. And it's just literally exactly like you said, even today, it's just people get geared up, and they go in a hidey hole, gear up, and then they just go out and roving kill squads. And I wouldn't even call it just like an all-around survival game. I'd call it straight up a PvP survival game, where if you are not PvPing, you are going to get demolished, because you can't play the game unless you're on a server that takes off the PvP. And at that point, like, it
Then
kind of gets,
what's the point at
yeah,
that point, right?
what's the point? Like, you need moderation, and the only real way to get that was with heavy-handed admins, and really no one's gonna go by it unless it was a private server. So for me, like Rust, I got into it for a bit, and then I put it back down because it was boring. I hated logging in every day. It's the same thing with Ark. The game's just like that, where there's a big tribe or clan that goes around blowing stuff up. I hate doing
Right.
30 hours of work, getting off, getting back on. It's all gone. So I agree with you there.
Right. So so there you go. You know what an anarchy game then is like, and unfortunately, Worlds Adrift kind of threatened to turn into something exactly like that, which is pretty much exactly what happened. Now, there are people who thrive on chaos like that, and they love it. You know, they jump into a game like Tarkov where you have to be on your feet, just you have to be absolutely on your toes. I bought Tarkov last night and tried it out, and oh boy, do I suck at
Oh yeah,
Tarkov!
I am god awful, and I gotta say, I agree with you. That, like, my blood pressure goes to the roof playing that game because you just hear like a stick crack, and you're like, "Oh, I'm gonna die."
Yeah, no, exactly. You know, I finally kind of after a few really total failure rounds, I kind of figured out that you have to like I played around where it was just absolute dark of night, and all I had was a pistol because I'd lost everything else, and so I just kind of crept around and heard other footsteps, and so I just stood stock still, silent, and managed to get the drop on a guy who came around the corner, but his gun was just too damn good, and my aim was not up to it, so I got gunned down anyway. But you know, you figure out that you really, in an anarchy kind of scenario like that, you just absolutely have to be on your toes at all times because it's always a life or death survival kind of scenario.
Yeah, I agree. Like, honestly, the only way I can really ever have fun with Tarkov, because I'm also, because you die and you lose all your stuff every single time, and it's not easy to get. So, like, the way I have fun with it is just play, the scav mode where you start as one of the NPCs, and if you manage to survive, you get to leave with your cruddy gear. And then if I play again on my normal guy, I'll just bring that same cruddy gear out. But I like that because then at least if you play as a scav, you don't have to worry about the NPCs, and all you gotta do is focus on looking like an NPC because no one's going to shoot you because then all of a sudden everyone's going to run at you and they're like, well, I want to kill players, not the NPCs sometimes. So I find like just kind of like statically walking around like I don't know what I'm doing. It kind of works out when you're playing with that.
For sure. Yeah, that makes sense. Maybe I should try that. I'll try that next time in Tarkov. Yeah, Tarkov really gets the blood flowing. And there's something to be said for that because those chaos type games, man, they really force you to be alert. They really force you to be on your toes, and I kind of love that to a degree. I suck at it, but I love it.
Yeah,
And that's one of the things that I'm looking forward to it in Starbase because really, me in particular, I'm going to be hunted. I've got a huge target on my back, so I'm actually kind of looking forward to that in Starbase. But uh, anyway, your original question was how'd the Harbormen get started? Okay, well, so I had this idea. I don't like griefers. I don't like that particular type of personality that just totally gets off on the misery of others. You know what I mean?
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like those, and I think that that's just kind of a cruddy way to play. And I think that people who intentionally go into something intending to tilt the game in favor of just being miserable for other people, I don't like that.
I believe the
You know,
Germans actually have a word for that. It's Schadenfreude. It means pleasure through from other people's pain.
that's the exact term. Yeah. Well, so I tried to conceive of what would be the anti-griefer, right? The good guy gamer. And so I wrote a sort of a code of conduct, a code of ethics, like a code of honor kind of thing, which we call the Code of the Harbormen. And I gave it a nautical theme because I used to be a sailor, so I like boats. So we've got that anchor symbol, and that's the Harbormen. That's what we are. You know, we strive to be better gamers. We try to improve ourselves. But we're Care Bears. We're kind of a yacht club. We're not necessarily really great PvPers, but we're trying to get better.
Yeah.
We go into game like Destiny, and we play conclave matches as a team, and we tend to kick absolute ass as a team, right up until we run up against another team that's just too good, and then we get humbled again. But there's always that reach for improvement. So we're all about fair play. Acknowledging, of course, that in sandboxes, a fair fight is never really a thing, but fair play is a thing.
It's like that meme where we know you're a bad guy, but it doesn't mean you're a bad guy. You're not.
There you go.
You're not. You don't have really a problem with people that want to play the bad guy. You just have people that just like you said, get off on causing misery explicitly.
Exactly. Oh yeah, exactly. And I don't mind a pirate. Like in Worlds Adrift, you had pirates who were legitimate pirates, right? They were out to profit. They would shake down other ships. They would come in cannon range, fire off a couple of shots, and shout at you. All right, cut your engines, and we're gonna take your cargo.
Really more about like the why they're doing it, not really the fact that they're doing it. It's like less of a problem with like the fact that like the people that go on, they want to pick you apart, take the expensive stuff, and leave. You have more of a problem with the people that want to atomize every part of your ship just because it's going to make you even more angry about it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. They're just agents of chaos. And I can't. I'm not a guy. I'm not a guy for that. I don't like it. I would rather resist that. And so that's what the Harbormen are about.
That actually kind of it actually plays into my next question I was wanting to ask was how would you actually describe your ethos and how you kind of explain most of that, and I would lead into the second part of that question would be with that way of thinking, how does that affect how you operate at home and abroad? I think you kind of touched on it, but like more specific.
Well, okay. So we're about fair play, good sportsmanship, and self-improvement, right? We know we're not terribly good PvPers, but we're trying to be better. We acknowledge that a fight in a sandbox game is not always going to be fair, but at least we can play somewhat by the rules. We can, if we've got allies, if we've got people that are relying on us, we try to be good to them. If we've got, we played Atlas for quite a while, and we had trading partners. We were good trading partners, and we assisted in the defense of an island, and we set up some really nice fortifications on that island. And despite the fact that our allies were not necessarily always good to us, we always tried to give them a real fair shake. They needed salt. We had a really good. We had access to a lot of salt. We stockpiled a bunch, and so we sold it at a relatively fair price, and that kind of thing, right? Just be decent players. Strive to be good, but be at the game. Strive to be skillful, but also be decent. Ethically so. So I would say that and we try to be good to each other in general. We try to encourage each other and we try to provide opportunities for our own members to advance, to get better, to prove their worth. And we acknowledge that worth with ranks and acknowledgement and some prestige. And when we do have allies, we try to be worthy allies to them. We try to come to their aid. If they've got a battle to fight, we try to be there and fight with them. And that's really the core of it.
Awesome. You did mention Atlas. I got to ask, that kind of plays into this next question. I know are some of the kind of clans coming from Atlas and a few other games that are the kinds that you don't like, such as the Rambo Alliance and maybe some of the Chinese. Leading from that to this next question, kind of like with Hersa and the Rambo guys. Let's see, how do I want to phrase this?
Hersa's a showman.
Yeah, he is. He talk full caps. Full caps everything he says.
Oh yeah. Actually,
I guess that's what actually kind of. But what I was going to ask is, how do you plan on? I guess the question I actually got wrote down is: I've seen people describe your clan as a protector clan, and you've kind of referred to yourself just then as that as well. And I've also had, some other Eve players refer. I've heard them use not directed at you, but like a couple years ago, I'd always hear them refer to like non-PvP clans as Care Bears, and you mentioned like you try to be kind of like that in some senses.
Care Bears with teeth.
Yeah, would you agree? Would you agree with the sentiment that you would call yourself a protector clan, and also a caveat to that is, do you have any plans to work in tandem with other entities who perform similar functions, protecting wise, as to different varying levels to degrees, even if it's things like Lodestar and the other federations out there?
Lodestar might actually be a good option for us. I've really thought about that. I don't know. I don't know if we would fit into Lodestar, unfortunately, because there's at least one group in there that I think is it might be antagonistic toward the Harbormen. But protectors, yeah. I mean, I would love to be really good, effective protectors. And I would strive for that. We certainly strived for that in Atlas, and to a degree, we managed it. We kept up a pretty good defense of our island. We were good partners to our allies. We held up our end, and I think we that's a badge of pride for us. We did our jobs, and I think that's what we're gonna at least try to hit that bar. We're gonna at least try to do that in Starbase. I would like to hook up some other protector type groups. You got a couple of nice groups out there. The Myrmidon Legion is one that looks real promising. So maybe some joint ops with them. But more likely, what we're actually going to do is get together with production type companies, groups that are into engineering, design, and programming, and that kind of thing, and try to lend them some support. Throw some resources their way, give them some protection. Give them some cover so that they can do their jobs, so that they can do their works. And then of course, in turn, benefit from what they produce. That's probably going to be our best bet. I respect people who like to build things. I respect makers, and I want makers to have the space to go ahead and make. So I would like to I would like to be a bit of a shield for them, if that's possible.
That's completely understandable. I think that's kind of like what we're doing in Lodestar right now, with like more some of the larger PvP groups banding together, so that like the smaller maker groups can kind of just do what they want to do.
Sure, that's one of the reasons why Lodestar kind of looks good. I haven't made any motions toward actually joining Lodestar. I kind of want to sit back and see what the culture of that group kind of turns out to be. I don't know if we'll fit into that culture, but yeah, I mean, if we could be valuable to Lodestar, I think I would like to entertain that option.
Sure, there's those in it that would entertain that option fairly. They definitely give it a good thought, but like you said, I think there's a lot of blood in the water recently. Not just with anyone in Lodestar, explicitly. I think just like community wide, and we'll touch again on that later on.
For sure. Oh, I know what you want to ask about.
Yeah. Off topic though, has anyone ever? I watched the Joe. Have you ever watched the Joe Rogan show by any chance?
Oh yeah.
So have you seen the Robert Downey Jr. interview by any chance?
I think I watched a clip of it.
You remind me, just listening to you, like you have the same speaking mannerisms and kind of slightly like voice. I feel like you just sound. It just feels like I'm sitting here interviewing Robert Downey Jr. I don't know why. It just feels like that. I just had to say that. I couldn't get that off my mind. I'm like, this sounds just like this.
Oh, that's high praise.
Yeah,
that's high praise. That's RDJ is one hell of a character.
Yeah, he's one of the
guy too.
Yeah, he's one of the actors I heavily respect.
Yeah, good fella. Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. Back to the interview though. Next question is a little kind of like reeling it back a little, more just about you and like your faction and how it's hierarchy. More explicitly, how would you describe the hierarchy and rank structure? How does the puzzle that is Harbormen fit together?
It's a meritocracy, very thoroughly a meritocracy. People contribute, they play games with us, and when somebody kind of proves their worth a little bit, they rank up. Really, that's it. If somebody has got personal merit, if they're a contributing member, and if we feel that we can trust them, they go up the rankings. And that's really it. The ranks are just acknowledgments of the degree to which we value and trust our people. They're all great. I mean, I've got a fantastic crew. They're actually just fantastic people. And of course my council of captains, the lieutenants, are just sharp people, and they know well enough to tell me no when somebody needs to tell me to hey, Keen, dude, you can't do that. They're the people I can trust to tell me no.
Honestly, that sounds exactly like how we have it. It's just meritocracy with a council of people that know how to tell me no.
Yeah, that's fantastic. It's really good to have that, and to have that circle of trust and that certainty that between the lot of you, you can come up with the right decision. You know, and
Yeah.
I can go ahead and add my fire to the group, and I've got good officers who can help channel it. And it's just it's a good feeling. It's a good solid circle of trust.
Awesome. Yeah, I couldn't agree more that meritocracies are pretty much, in my opinion, probably yours too, since you got one.
Yeah,
The probably the top, at least if not the top, near the top of apex clan structures would probably be meritocracy. So that I feel
sure.
like just always reward the people that are actually building the ground at which you're standing on.
Yeah, and it's something we arrived at through some experimentation. We didn't. We kind of evolved this structure out of necessity as the group grew, as we matured, as we encountered problems. We just kind of we arrived at this because it's what works, and it's fun to now compare to other groups that are doing the same thing. That
Yeah.
pretty much have the exact same structure, and it's like, oh yeah, that's what works. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. I had to bleed to find out, but hey,
Yeah, I understand because we formed probably about the same time, and as you said, evolved over time as things kept going wrong. We kept patching them. It seems like meritocracy with the council is pretty much the end game that it seems like we always that I see in the long term clans that everyone usually ends up at.
Mm, yeah, for sure. For sure. By the way, I'm curious. Actually, I know you're supposed to be interviewing me, but Darkstar Imperium, what are you guys about? Like, what is your um? So I'm about like fairness, sportsmanship, and self improvement, right? That's the Harbormen way. What's the Darkstar way?
Well, a preface on that is Kennedy did just do an interview on us. It's not out yet. He is working on it. So
Oh,
if
good,
before I answer this question, I advise people to just open a new tab, go find that, give him a watch, and
dude.
see,
Give
all that good
Kennedy a
stuff.
subscribe. He's
Oh
got a
yeah,
quality channel.
yeah, that. Uh,
Yeah.
but for those that don't feel like going out, or if it's not out yet, because this may get posted in the next few days, my video that is. So I'd say that we do lean more towards the PvP side, but we like to cater towards all people. We like to have our makers as well. We have engineering departments, people that like
Nice.
to script. Got a lot of people that are like that's their job in real life, and they like to do it here. So got a lot of professional scripters.
Very
Just
nice.
then that we got our good share of makers. Seeing as how we came from space engineers a lot from way back when, I think everyone has a chance to be is mostly a maker. Everyone's kind of like that combat engineer where everyone fights, everyone knows how to do mine. Everyone mines, everyone makes the stuff. Because like every
And when it
time,
comes time, everybody fights, huh?
uh, most people, because some people don't like fighting, and that's fine. So they don't have to fight; they can just do whatever they want. Like I ask them, that's one of the first things when people join. I ask what they like to do, and then I kind of set them up for success. Put them under and put them over there where the people that do that are, so that if they want to fight and do it, they can fight. If they don't, they never have to touch a gun. But in all, I'd say we try and be more of like a professional fighting force of just people that like to have fun PvPing. It's we don't go out of our way to grief. It's more like I guess
Well,
like it's more political. I'd say it's more political with us. It's kind of like we do
fair enough.
we like to do the political the grand game as some people call it, and then some
For
people
sure.
just don't like you, and they see our color schemes and they're like, oh, you're obviously a Nazi, and then we're, as I said before, we're just a meritocracy with like kind of like a medieval European, like kind of like a Roman theme and hierarchy, but at its core, it's just a meritocracy with a council.
Hmm.
But some people see the color scheme and the stuff, and they're like, "Ooh, pointy bits in the emblem," and then they automatically brand us bad guy, and they want to come at us. And that's usually how most of the people we end up fighting is just the people that make enemies of us. We don't go out and make our own enemies half the time. People just decide they don't like us, and they're like, "Well, you just picked yourself as the PvP event for next Saturday night,
Well,
basically."
that's a familiar story. Yeah, yeah. Harbormen tend to get targeted by people who don't like Care Bears.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of people kind of like it's the similar like thing, and not just like Care Bears. It's like you replace Care Bear with ooh, look scary mean guy. We're gonna fight them because we're gonna be revolutionaries or something. Usually, it's the leaders that end up having kind of like the more communistic and like socialistic kind of groups and themes
Oh,
where
nice.
like it's the people that see ours and see us as the antithesis, and they want to quote unquote like stand up to us and whatnot. I'm like, I'm already sitting down. You don't got to stand up. We're sitting down right now.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Yeah, we should probably swap some stories sometime.
Yeah, we definitely got stories, especially since my second in command and his clan that merged into mine. We were actually at like a long scale, like in a long scale war for like 2 or 3 years of just completely hating each other's guts, just doing anything
Oh,
we could to just make the other one, like life suck because we just hated each other as individuals, not just clans. Like it was staunch. Like
oh my.
this is dirty. It got real dirty. Like I'm
That's funny.
talking like both sides raiding each other's discords, going to each other's SE servers, and just for the sake of just hunting each other down. It was dirty.
Are you?
And
Are
as
you?
like I said, like we go over this. We actually touch on that in the Kinneter's interview. Like I said, if you haven't already, if he's got it, I'll go give him a listen. He's a good guy.
That's nice. That's cool. Join or die.
I do. I don't know much about them. I haven't watched
They
Kinneter's
came
video
from
either yet.
they came from the Worlds Adrift community, and before they were Join or Die, they were basically a bunch of people who followed who they kind of revolved around this one streamer, this guy named Saramore. And Saramore is he's this bombastic character. He's sort of like I'm a character. I'm a bit brash. I speak out a lot. Well, take that kind of quality from me and turn it to 11, and that's Saramore. And he and his buddies, Half Blood and Edgar and a few others, they formed Join or Die out of the in the Worlds Adrift community, and it's what they do. They would hunt people down, and they would say, "Join us or get sunk," and that's it.
Sounds like Flying Dutchman, kind of from the Pirates of the Caribbean's movies. It's like, do you fear death?
Absolutely, yes, capturing the souls of these poor sailors, and that was their whole deal. And I actually okay, so back in the day, back in the golden era of Worlds Adrift, back when we had like peak player population and everything was going great in the Worlds Adrift community, I carved out a section of the map, and I declared that it was a free port. And the idea was that people come there, trade, build ships, trade ships, do whatever they wanted, right? But the idea was that this was a space where you just didn't take hostile actions against other players. That was the only rule. Just don't be a dick to other players. If you come in, you be hostile, then you become a target, and we had security guys that would take them down. And there was this, and I set this up, and I some guy came up and uh, he decided that he wanted to be the mayor of it or something like that. He wanted to be the administrator of the whole free port, and I let him administrate it. He set up a Discord for it, and it became this whole thing. And for about 2 weeks, it was actually really beautiful. We had security forces. It was this nice, calm area in this very chaotic game. Players would just sort of float around and say hi, and they would trade stuff, and then they would go back out into the wild world and come back with trade goods. And so the Freeport was this beautiful success for about 2 weeks, and then it came under attack, and one of its main attackers was this guy named Saramore. And one of the problems was that he had this rivalry going on with this other streamer, and this other streamer uh, was cheating. We didn't know it. We didn't understand that at all. He comes into the free port. And he asks for he asks for shelter in the free port, and he ends up joining the security forces and helping to defend the free port from pirates and such. And Saramore saw this, and he went, "Well, shit! There goes the free port. They'll just let anybody be security there. Look, there you got a cheater on your security forces." And he and a bunch of other guys got together and just started relentlessly attacking the free port and accusing us of cheating, which I thought was just total bullshit. But then I was, I wasn't able to get very many in-game hours, and I wasn't really hands-on enough to really understand what was going on. What finally shook out at the end of about a month-long war was that, matter of fact, some of the security guys had been cheating. They'd been duping materials and building ships out of duplicated stuff. And they'd been doing this habitually over and over, and they'd been doing a couple of other little hacky things here and there. Saramore had been right the whole time. So here my beautiful Freeport was being torn apart by pirates, and I was tearing my hair out going, what the hell's going? Why would you do this? Yeah. Why is this, these guys, they're making up these lies about our cheating security guys. And why finally,
Little did I
know that they were actually right. And I still hang out in Saramore's Discord. Those guys are hilarious, actually. They're fantastic guys. But Saramore and I were deadly enemies, and we hated each other. And it was this grand drama. And, I was making these grandiose posts on the forum about how bad he was and look at his crimes. And
Goes to show sometimes the bad guy actually has some pretty good intentions if you look past what you already think of him.
Right. Honestly, it was a harsh lesson for me. And finally, so when the truth finally came out, the Freeport just dissolved. The guy who had been administering the Freeport, the mayor of the Freeport, he nuked the Discord, just killed it off completely, and that was the end of the Freeport. So yeah. After that, Saramore and his buddies, they formed Join or Die because, well, the Freeport War was over, so now they needed some new thing to do that was fun and interesting. So Join or Die became a thing. Which, by the way, is a piece of mimetic genius. It's so simple. 3 words. You know exactly what that group is about. Nobody is under any question what that group is about. You join it, you know exactly what to do. Make other people join or die.
Very simple. Sometimes the simplest things that work the best.
Just a beautiful simplicity. I've always admired it. So anyway, there you go.
For itself.
Yeah. So yeah, there you go. That's what we did in Worlds Adrift. We made a free port. Turns out it was corrupt. It got torn down, and I was on the wrong side of that war.
Rip. So
yeah,
we'll start rolling into some of these more juicy questions, and then after those, a few more questions, I'll end us on more of a good note question. So starting the juicy stuff. So
juicy.
In my most recent interview that I just did with the Cabraston cult, you already know where this is going. They pointed you out as they are single fixation for war in the game now, even so much to basically pull back all their countless other war declarations just explicitly to hunt down Harbormen, and more specifically you yourself. And seeing as they're both
news I'd heard all week.
Seeing as how they are veteran Eve players, but like you can always say like, well, this isn't Eve, but then also because they have like what to me seems like endless levels of patience and a will to do whatever they have to, no matter how heinous or tedious, to collect their prey's head, and in this case, your head. What do you plan on doing about this exactly, since they are there doing what they're going to do, and they're likely to just rile everybody up else that will listen to them to kind of follow them on their crusade?
Well, I suppose I'm going to have to make enough friends that I've got some people having my back. Otherwise, I'm going to have to get really, really careful and clever about how I play the game. I don't know. It's going to be a particularly interesting challenge, I suppose. Now the Cobrastan, or is it Cobristan? I always read it as Cobristan.
It might be Cobristan because I think it's actually a reference from Papers, Please. Like, because I actually looked it up and it was most of what came up was either him on his like
Or Papers,
uploading,
Please.
yeah, or Papers, Please of like this country doesn't exist. There's no Cobristan. So it could be that or Cobristan. I'm not exactly sure. I know that, but I know he said in his interview, he actually the whole point of his name is actually just to troll some other guy because he leached all his members from another group called the Church of Cobrastan.
Oh, jeez. Yeah. Well, Mr. Astaroth, he doesn't like me too much because of what I did with the faction finder. I guess we'll get into that later.
Yeah.
He's an experienced PvPer, and he's got. I believe him when he says he's got the skill to back up his claims. I'm quite certain he's got a number of spies in my Discord. It's not at all hard to get a spy or 3 into Harbormen Discord.
Yeah, he explicitly mentioned that he has been planting people in there. Yeah.
Yeah. He doesn't have a mod though. I know very, very much for certain he doesn't have a mod. But yeah, no, he's got spies for sure. Yeah. So yeah, what we're being watched by an enemy who wants to kill us. This is interesting to me. I find this to be a fascinating twist to what will be, I'm sure, some very captivating gameplay in Starbase. So I'm certain that he's going to catch me at some points. He's going to get a couple kills on me. He's probably going to get some kills on some of my people. He probably will target anybody who counts themselves as my friends. So that's going to be awfully uncomfortable, unfortunately. However, that doesn't really change anything because he was going to be a nasty motherfucker to pretty much anybody he could. He was going to go after anybody anyway. He was declaring war on any group at all that he didn't have any respect for.
In his interview, he just kept. He mentioned many times that he really how sweet he put it. People's tears are.
For sure, yeah. So he's exactly one of those sorts of people that I don't like and I would rather oppose. So yeah, I mean, it's not I'm not 100% comfortable with the fact that I'm being targeted like this, but I think it's also rather appropriate. I've made the exact kind of enemy that I really want to make. So there we have it. Here we go. This is the challenge that I've signed up for. So, Mr. Astaroth, if you're listening, come and get me.
Excellent. I like that. Kind of leads into the next question. Actually, the reason why they say that they've decided to just target pretty much explicitly you, but probably everyone else along the way to get there. Most of their increase of their hatred recently seems to stem from what they refer to as a quote-unquote hostile takeover and an ousting of the old guard from the faction finder. What would you like to set the record straight on this matter for our viewers and also to explain the future for faction finder and where you plan on taking it?
Well, I mean, the facts are simple. I'd have to go back a little bit to make it completely clear, but Aboleth was the creator of the faction finder. So let's let that stand. The faction finder is his creation and it's his accomplishment. What I did in taking it away from him was an awfully nasty thing to do. It was not a nice thing. And if somebody had done that sort of thing to me, I would never stop hunting them. I would be out for revenge and I would be out to rebuild and to surpass the thing, like
that's
he's
basically
doing with
exactly,
faction.
They are trying to rebuild and they are out after you right now. It's exactly like you said.
So I don't fault him at all for any of that. His reaction is about right. So fine, but I took over the faction finder for good reason. Months ago, the faction finder had a lot of momentum and it was gaining a lot of groups, and it was the phone book. It was the registry for all of the Starbase groups. And it was very successful in that light. But the problem was that Aboleth himself is the guy runs his mouth. He has a very, very hard time just kind of socializing with other people somehow, and he's got a vicious streak. He's got a very, very vicious streak to him.
I do understand that, yeah, because he's actually been banned from DSI Discord a few times just because told him not to.
He's
I think he unintentionally starts flame wars. He says things people don't like. They respond obviously how you'd expect, and it was
yeah,
not good
yeah,
for business.
and it escalates. And so he did that in Starbase Discord, and he said actually some racially charged stuff that was pretty egregious. I've lost the screenshots of exactly what it was, but he said something that the Starbase devs didn't like, and so the mods banned him. The community managers and mods they got rid of him, and since then they've actually dealt with some harassment from him. He apparently put in some alts, or he had some of his buddies do some things in Starbase Discord. Some vindictive kind of stuff where the mods just kind of got sick of the guy. Like, they just weren't willing to have anything to do with him. And unfortunately, because he was the owner of the Faction Finder, that meant that the Faction Finder now itself was no longer welcomed by the Starbase community managers. They didn't want to have anything to do with it. They wouldn't allow the Faction Finder to be advertised on the Starbase server. That meant that the Faction Finder had its reach pretty severely cut. Its ability to advertise was cut. There was no possibility of any sort of relationship with the developers, right? There's no way for the Faction Finder to have any sort of official approval from like a community manager or anything like that, right?
Yeah, I understand.
So, all because of the connection with Aboleth. So what Aboleth did what he did was he decided to hand ownership of the Faction Finder to me. Now, at that time, I was pretty friendly with Aboleth. I actually kind of liked the guy. I thought that he was decent, and he certainly can turn on the charm when he wants to. And I was making YouTube content at the time that he really liked, and he thought that I was a decent fellow. And since I had some respect in the community, he decided that I was the ideal person to take on ownership of the Faction Finder. It would add some credibility to the thing and make it possible again for the Faction Finder to have some reach in the community. Well, I took on ownership, but Aboleth retained an administrator role in the Faction Finder. He kept some control. He didn't want to really let it go, right? So I said, okay, fine. And I sat there being the owner. And really all I ever did with the Faction Finder, I didn't want to mess with it, right? The Faction Finder was successful. It had been built. It had been made and maintained by Aboleth and his friends. And there it was. And, messing with it in any way seemed like a destructive action. I didn't want to do that. When you create a resource like the Faction Finder, or like anything, like I've got one, Cardinal Guild, which was the mapping service for Worlds Adrift. Worlds Adrift didn't have any map. It had to be created by players. So I created the player organization that made the maps for Worlds Adrift. When you make a community resource like that, it kind of grows beyond yourself, and it really belongs to the community. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
and that was my concept of the Faction Finder. It's not mine. It really belongs to the community. It belongs to all those faction owners who are trying to be listed there and are trying to be found by people who want to find groups. And it's a valuable resource to people who just want to be part of the community and be recognized as a group in the community. So for months, I sat there with the Faction Finder, just owning the Faction Finder, and all I really did was every couple of weeks, some blow up would happen where Aboleth would insult somebody and create a flame war and would get banned out of their server, and he would threaten to remove their listing from the Faction Finder and shit like that. Like, it's just like there was always something like that, and I would have to go and smooth it over with that faction leader and make sure that that their post wasn't messed with or anything like that. I kind of learned how vicious Aboleth could get, and how much of a problem he really was. And when I tried to make any sort of a move to legitimize the faction finder with the Starbase mods, I couldn't get any traction at all. They wouldn't really even talk with me. Aboleth still there, right? It's still kind of a cesspit. There's still, it's still not moderated. It's not up to our community standards. They couldn't have anything to do with it. So finally, Aboleth got particularly egregious, and he pissed off another faction leader, and he said some things that were kind of gaslighting kind of stuff. Like he insulted somebody, they got upset, and then he chastised them for being unprofessional. Like really, dude? So finally, Braylock, one of the administrators, he came to me with this, and he said, like, hey, look, we've had enough problems with Aboleth. We need him out of this faction finder. If we're stagnating, we're losing users. We've got one group that wants to delist themselves just because they don't want to have anything to do with Aboleth. So finally, what I did was I assembled a management team from my own officers, because they were available because of what I had, right? And came up with a plan, and then a few hours later, I replaced the whole management team, including Aboleth, and took over the faction finder. And it blew up, and some people said some nasty shit. And when people violated the rules too much, we banned them. I think we ended up banning, about 5 people. Not capriciously, not for no reason, but for actually violating rules.
Yeah, that's actually pretty enlightening, because all I had heard up to this point was just all I heard was the part they didn't like, which was you banned Aboleth, stole his thing, but from what you're saying, like, I completely understand, because long time ago, before, like, years ago, DSI had a co-leader. We merged our clans together. Mine was obviously like a shit ton bigger, so I already owned the Discord, so I wasn't giving him ownership. But we ran into some problems really quickly when he tried to, I wouldn't say just because he was steering it in a different direction, but his direction was, ban people because they're gay or because they're furries. Just straight up remove them. We don't want them here. And I'm like, no, I'm trying to grow the clan. You can't just tell me to ban half the people that come in. And it was just shit like that. And then, like, eventually it got to the point where I brought it to the council. It wasn't like I unanimously, was just like, fuck off, ban. It was, we put him in quarantine because he couldn't control himself. And then I brought it before our council, because we have like a 3-part vote system where it's just like the founder, or the time it was the emperors, the regent, and the heads of department and community representatives. And we went to a vote, and I told them the council, basically, Star Wars style, the council will decide your fate, because I said I wasn't going to be the one to pull the trigger. I was stepping aside, and I was going to let the community decide if he hangs. And he left. And for months, for even a year, he like kept saying that I kicked him. I took this from him. And as we grew and got more popular and more powerful, he's like, you took this from me. That could have been me. But the thing is like, the community itself decided to do away with him, because he was going down a path that no one else wanted to follow.
Yeah, I get it. And I've dealt with dramatic situations like that in my own group, so I know how that goes, right? Let me tell you how the faction finder is doing right now. We have a positive user flow. We've got 2 new bots that are running on that server. One of them designed by SJIK, member of Skyjack Industries. Good guy. Has been a manager on the faction finder for a long time, so I brought him back on board. He finished his bot. It's running. Another bot by Mad Max will list and store information on groups, and will automatically produce ads, like rotating advertisements. So every I think 4 hours or something like that, it runs through its list of groups and posts their ads in the automated ad reel, and that bot can be put on any server anywhere. So if you want to have a server that advertises other people's groups, you can just install that bot and run it, right? So we got those bots, they're running. People are interacting with those bots now. We're getting new groups created. We've got a positive user flow. More people are joining than leaving. So was not the situation when Aboleth was in charge. Toward the end there, when I finally took it over, the faction fighter had been stagnating for quite a while, and we now have regained the right to post ads on the Starbase official Discord, and we've regained our ability to at least communicate with and have some sort of relationship with the community managers and devs of Starbase. So that's where the faction finder sits. It's running, it's doing its job. The community is getting value out of it, and that was the goal all along. And that was, all the way back those months ago when Aboleth handed me ownership of the server. That was what his goal was anyway. The faction finder will always be his accomplishment. He created it, and he should always get credit for having done so. But I think he should also get some credit for having stagnated it and, frankly, almost destroying it.
Yeah, I agree that, I left it here a while back just because of the constant repeated drama. The fact that it was stagnating, I would go in there. I mean, the first month that it existed, it was great. We were constantly getting new joins coming from there, like, oh, we came from Faction Finder. But after a time, we stopped seeing those and started getting constant drama from there. And I saw that anytime I look at the number, the Discord was shrinking by the hundreds. So it was basically drama and dead server equaled I had no reason to be there. So actually, I guess upon hearing what you had said, I guess I'm going to have to join back, since it's more of the community tool is no longer broken in half and in the junk pile.
Well, yeah, that was my goal. I wouldn't have done that. I don't, it wasn't like it wasn't a good or a nice thing that I did. Stealing the faction finder from Aboleth, cutting him out of it completely, and then banning him for his own, for shit talking and all that. That was, it was an ugly action. It was ugly. It was not. Nobody should look at that and say, "Oh yeah, Keen did a great thing." No, Keen didn't. Keen did an ugly thing. So blaming me for that and painting a target on me and coming after me for having cut Aboleth out of his own server, I'll take it. That's my penance for the ugly thing that I did.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. Like I understand that because I've been there. It's one of those things that it's ugly, it's bad, it's violent, it causes violent actions for months to a year on end until people just get over it eventually. Long time, as they say, time heals all wounds. This is one of those wounds that only time is going to heal. But if in the retrospect, go forward a year in time, if it was on the same trend it was going on, it might not have. It would have just died naturally, and it just would have been a dead server. So, and it was much easier to get fix the tool by removing parts that were keeping it there, because the main thing that makes it work, in my opinion, is the ability to post ads for the faction finder, because people see that and they think, oh, I'll go get my faction there, instead of scrolling through 100 years of things where, like, the last week only 5 clans have been posting ads. I don't like these 5 clans, but the thing is like, without ads for the faction finder, it had no net increase of new players. So it was kind of like the people that are in there have already done their job. They're not doing anything else. So it was kind of, that's one of the reasons, like, that in the drama is just that it was kind of meaningless for me to stay in there. I fired and just forget it now. But I guess I'll have to come back, like I said.
Well, we'd appreciate having you. It'll be an honor to list you. And I hope you get a positive user flow, and that the faction finder is useful to you.
Awesome. Let's see where we're at.
What questions do we have left here? How much time have we taken here?
I'm not sure. It's not as long as TCCs, I feel, but it's definitely longer than the collectives. Last question.
Oh, jeez. Yeah. Okay.
What all, and like ending on a positive note now, what all is part of Harbormen's first expeditions into Starbase? What exactly is your plan? And like, what all you plan on doing once you're able to get in to make sure your ideals and goals are met?
I think what we'll probably end up doing is getting together with some mining group and going out for some big haul. We're probably gonna build a big a big rock hauler rig and try to find some particularly valuable asteroid and drag it all the way back to a refinery. You know, just go for one big score early on, and try to protect it. My crew might be the protectors on that trip, or we might be the miners. I'm not really certain. I don't know exactly how that's going to work out, but I want to risk our first hours on a big score. That's what we're going to do.
Awesome. Yeah, you'll definitely have to kind of watch your back, seeing as to how, a lot of people, their first thoughts getting in is, okay, Keen can't have gotten far.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. What direction did he go? Boy, I'd better not be streaming.
Be okay, let's go log in on those alts and say, okay, I'll help mine, and then we'll kind of just triangulate it from the angle from the planet.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so that could get ugly. That could get fun. I don't know. Maybe I'd better arrange that operation and then carry off some decoy operation somewhere else, where I become the target and become the lightning rod for all that action, while the actual mining crew goes and does their work in peace. Maybe that's what I'll do.
True. And if not, you could always do guns for hire. We're always looking. Yeah, it's not our main. It's not our main thing, but we do take kill contracts and defense contracts if someone wants, because it's a totally apolitical operation. It's like, oh, sorry, I'm getting paid to do this. No hard feelings.
How about first 15% on our first score plus a bonus on any kills made?
Sure, we'll see. Depends on how many more TCCs declare war on you before we want to, and if any of them want to carry that over to us just for accepting such a contract.
You guys are going to hazard pay for that, yeah? Well, we'll work something out.
Hazardous pay, dangerous location pay, the works.
Oh God, that'll get expensive, huh? All right, well, we'll talk business later. For now, well, thank you for the interview. This has been lovely, actually.
I agree. It's definitely opened my eyes. I see you a little differently from the the rumor mill, how they painted you, and
yeah, for sure.
Definitely not exactly how they painted you. You're a little bit different. I expected first whenever I heard from what I heard, it was just like what really blew me away was the differentiating between griefers and pirates. I thought is there's no difference. If you're a pirate, you're a griefer kind of thing, and I was like, oh, here, let's see how this goes.
No,
it's like
no.
I thought it was from what I was told. It's just like PvP bad, PvP make you evil is what I was told.
Are you kidding? PvP is the spice of a game like this. That's what gets the blood flowing. Are you kidding? I just want to be on the right side. I want to be the good guys in that PvP engagement.
Yeah, understandable. For us, it's more like a neutral leg, one leg in both sides. Because, like I say, it's mostly political wars of just people will see us as the bad guy, but sometimes but that's mostly their own doing. That's how they want to see us, and that's because they started the war more or less by just being super disrespectful or just throwing rocks at our windows, and then we roll down the window and lob a rocket back at them, and they're like, "Whoop!" Then it's war. Then it's just
delicious drama, delicious.
I try and stay away from drama, as I said, but it always drama's a mistress that always seems to find you.
Oh, it's always there. Yeah, you try to find joy in it. That's the best way to go.
Yep. But I think that's all we got time for today. Thank you for coming in to be interviewed.
Thank you very much. It was an excellent interview. I'm glad I got to get my story out there.
Yeah, me too. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, I'll wrap it up for here. And if y'all enjoyed this, make sure to kind of check out all the other ones. We got a couple more right now, a couple more on the way. I'm going to put Keen's Discord down in the description, and that is about it. See y'all in the next one. See you.